The other day I shared someone else's post stating that you should probably avoid taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, super doses of antioxidants, or doing regular cryotherapy after workouts because it can reduce the inflammation that helps drive muscle growth and adaptation. Now, after I reposted that, someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, can you please do a video on this? Because I don't really understand what's going on here." And I thought it would be fun to do that because this advice runs so counter to what most people think they should do. Most people see inflammation as a bad thing and that the aim should always be to lower it. And that's because chronic inflammation has been tied to diseases such as type 2 diabetes, heart disease, dementia, and just aging in general. So clearly, inflammation can be a really bad thing, but it can also be a good thing, and it can be a necessary thing. For instance, you need a certain amount of inflammation in order to help your body adapt, grow, and regenerate after exercise. So in this video, I'm going to teach you what inflammation is, why it's not necessarily always a bad thing, and why you probably shouldn't take concentrated doses of antioxidants, ibuprofen, or regularly do cryotherapy after every workout. Inflammation is your body's response to an injury. It's the way that your body revs up the immune system in order to heal or repair damaged tissue or to fight an infection. When your body gets injured or senses an irritant, the immune system will release substances called inflammatory mediators. These mediators activate pathways that work to heal injury, for example, by doing things like increasing blood flow and making it easier for immune cells to pass from the blood to the injured tissue. So inflammation is a necessary response that's good over the short term, since it helps the body heal. But if the inflammatory response never gets resolved and instead stays somewhat elevated, inflammation becomes a bad thing. Such chronically high levels of inflammation are associated with diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and aging. But again, inflammation can be a good thing. You need it to heal, and the inflammatory signaling response is also necessary for your body to adapt after exercise. After intense exercise, your body makes free radicals, also known as reactive oxygen species, and it also makes cytokines that are involved in the inflammatory process, such as interleukin-6. Reactive oxygen species are continuously made in the body as part of metabolism, and although they're needed at low levels for your body to function correctly, at higher levels they can do some serious damage. Interleukin-6 is a famous cytokine that can trigger the release of other mediators of inflammation, and these are just two of many players involved in the inflammatory response. Now, in chronic diseases, reactive oxygen species and interleukin-6 are continuously elevated to a small degree. But during and immediately after exercise, reactive oxygen species production can increase 20-fold, and interleukin-6 production by muscle can increase up to 100-fold. Unlike what's seen in systemic chronic inflammation, where these levels continuously remain somewhat higher than they should be, after exercise, reactive oxygen species and interleukin-6 eventually drop back down to normal levels. This sharp, short-term increase in such mediators after exercise, as well as where they're made, is part of what signals the body to adapt to exercise. Now, this is just a small part of the whole inflammatory picture, but the point here is that the body sees inflammation after exercise somewhat differently than chronic low-grade inflammation. Exercise-induced reactive oxygen species and inflammation, as well as structural damage to muscle, can bring about very beneficial changes in the body, causing it to create more of its own antioxidant enzymes to protect against free radicals, as well as prompting muscle to grow, repair, and remodel. So for this reason, you don't want to try to prevent inflammation altogether by taking super concentrated doses of antioxidants, taking non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs around the clock, or doing cryotherapy after every hard workout. Research suggests that doing each of these things can impair muscle growth and regeneration, along with many of the other beneficial adaptations that are brought about by exercise. Also, you shouldn't be afraid to eat fruits, vegetables, or other foods that are high in antioxidants throughout the day or around your workout. Remember, it's important to have a certain amount of antioxidants in your diet. That's healthy. But what isn't necessarily beneficial is taking a super concentrated dose of vitamin A, C, E, flavonoids, polyphenols, and other antioxidants in levels that wouldn't normally be found in nature because these are super isolated, and then taking it right after a workout. That's probably not going to do you any good and will be counterproductive. So to sum things up, people tend to look at things in a very black or white manner. They think, oh, this thing over here is always good, or that thing over there is always bad, or because I heard this is good, I'm going to take as much as possible, as often as possible. But it's important to remember that there's usually a sweet spot to most things, and most things are more complex than people realize. And the same thing goes for inflammation. There's times that you want inflammation, times when you really don't, and an optimal level.